Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our news conference this afternoon here for the City of Grand Forks. Just some housekeeping things like we have done in the past. What Q&A will be after our panelists give their statements, and then please use the hand raise feature, and I will call on you and unmute your mic and direct your questions to where they need to be directed. So, without further ado, Mayor Boczynski, the floor is yours.
Thank you, John. The main reason for today's press conference is to give Dr. Brenner and President Armacost a chance to talk about their opening plans and schools coming online and the concerns there. We've got, at the city here, we've got just a brief COVID update that will give a lot of the facts and figures that people are used to seeing from our side. I think an important thing to start with today, and I think Dr. Brenner will hit on this later, there's been a lot of talk around town and different sources that the city was somehow being pressured into a mask mandate from the school board or from the superintendent, and that's certainly not the case. We continue to recommend. We are not going to be mandating masks at this time. It's been a good reaction, I think, from the public, and we've been happy to see that the usage of masks, it's a piece of the puzzle. Social distancing, cleaning, I mean, these are all pieces of the puzzle, and I think that the community is coming together and making smart choices, and we're going to continue to encourage that and continue to educate and want to see more mask usage and more people making safe decisions. But it's not something that we're going to mandate citywide. They are going to be mandating masks in schools, and I'll let Dr. Brenner get to that. With that said, I'd like to welcome Dr. Brenner and President Armacost, and we will go to our city slides now. All right, is that showing up? So just today, these are today's data. We had 9 positive cases out of 58, a low testing day. We were down, a lot of cases had been resolved, and we're down to 62 cases. As far as testing based on our population, being a county that has around 70,000 people, we've tested 37,000 times, 15,000 of those being unique. And the good news is that we've had a little bit of a spike, but we haven't seen the hospitalization sort of creep up along with that spike. I think we're having trouble getting to the next slides. There we go. Testing events, we continue to do testing events and open to the public. Sometimes the events start with UND's students and faculty going first, and as we have extra capacity, we begin to open it up, and that's exactly what you can see happening here. This one's the public school going first until 11, then open to the public after that. That's coming up on the 14th. As we go through and we look at all the data that we're getting coming in from a lot of different places, we're using a lot of different factors in decision making. It's not just the number of cases. There's the positivity rate, there's the hospital capacity, there's the hospitalization, the effectiveness of therapeutics that are coming through, and we also look at the total number of cases. So we're taking a holistic approach to all the data that we're getting. The public health, we've got a number of things that we're doing. We've signed an executive order that allows hotels and motels to be able to submit RFPs so we can have a space at a good price for quarantining and isolation to be prepared. We're helping out the area schools, continuing to coordinate testing events and taking a big role in the contact tracing. So I really need to thank Deb Swanson and the whole crew there at Public Health. They've done a phenomenal job. Another kind of unique thing, we're taking this approach. We talked to Chief Lorenz, and all 73 firefighters are EMT certified, so they volunteered to help out with some of the testing events, and just starting on Friday, we're going to see our firefighters stepping up and helping out with those testing events. So that's pretty exciting. One thing I'm really proud of, and a lot of this, has been continued since I've gotten in, but the city of Grand Forks with 550 employees has continued to work since March. We've done hybrid ways, but all of our essential employees have continued to work. All our essential services have continued, and we've stayed away from having any large outbreaks and very limited impact from infections. So it's been a really great example and a tribute to all of our city employees. One really exciting piece that we've been making a lot of progress on is with our institutional partners. We meet every week. It includes all the following there. We have a very strong unity there. We are working together. We're trying to increase capacity. We're working really closely with the governor, really closely with state public health. I had a couple conversations with Dr. Stahl, the state health director, today. We're continuing to increase capacity with our university coming back. It's a nearly a 20% increase in our population almost overnight. So we're going to need that increased testing capacity. They've been very, very good to work with, and they're definitely helping us out. And with the end goal to work towards being able to localize some of those resources. And certainly we have challenges ahead. This is not easy. I think, as you'll see with the school's plans, they work very hard, and it's been really great to work with both Dr. Brenner and President Armacost and see their plans in action, with the knowledge that these aren't going to be perfect and we're going to have to make some changes on the fly. So it's two true professionals that I've had the pleasure of working with. So thank you too. And just one more reminder: we need to slow the spread. I think we've done a good job at slowing it. We've had our initial peak, and then we started to creep up recently, but we're making the right decisions. So continue to do that. And from there, I'm going to start with UND. So I'm going to close my screen off and hand it over to you, President Armacost.
Great. Thanks, Mayor Bochensky. I appreciate all the support you and your staff have provided to the university. And I look forward to the return of our campus to kind of full strength coming up in the next couple of weeks. And through the work that we've done in our institutional partners meeting, I think we've made great progress and coordinated our activities, both from UND to the city, including the county, Grand Forks Air Force Base, and then our important partners in Altru. Altru has been a great partner, great advice, just helping us out with medical discussions and good policy. And of course, our local health officials, Deb Swanson has been fantastic as well. So we've been working on this response to COVID since March. So in mid-March, our pandemic working group began meeting on a daily basis, and they've been working at it ever since. And so the work is continuous. There's a lot of details to work through on the logistics, getting the physical alignment of the campus, both in the classrooms and the dormitories, getting that right, and working on how do we create a clean and hygienic environment for all members of our campus. And so there are a lot of steps to get to that point. And we have a huge emphasis on prevention. And this includes keeping our physical distance, having a requirement on campus for face coverings, keeping gatherings to small numbers, not large numbers, and then a huge emphasis on the identification of the virus, and that is through testing. And so I think our efforts on campus have been really beneficial, not just to UND, but also to the whole city of Grand Forks, to make sure that we have a lot of testing events and a capacity here to really see where the virus is and how the citizens and also the members of our campus are affected. And then subsequent to testing, of course, is the piece of contact tracing. And so how do we build the capacity to make sure that when all of our students arrive back to Grand Forks, how do we make sure we have the capacity to test them and again to do the contact tracing when positive test cases are found. And then finally, on the response side, how do we execute things like isolation for our COVID positive students, faculty, and staff, but also how do we quarantine those who are close contacts? So we spent a lot of time going through those details and coming up with an effective plan. Folks can actually check out blogs.und.edu/coronavirus to find all the resources that we've put out that describe the actions that we've taken. I think it's important to also mention that what we've learned this summer with limited numbers of students on campus here at UND, that the prevention methods and the response methods really work. These are great public health tools that really tamp down the virus when we identify it. So the lesson learned there, when our students come back to Grand Forks here at the start of the semester in a couple of weeks, that those prevention and response tools really work, and we need people to hit the ground running with respect to taking care of wearing face coverings, making sure that they're keeping distance from others, and avoiding gathering in large groups. This is hard, but it's not forever. And so making sure that all of our campus members abide by those ideals is really important. We need to minimize the risk on campus. Our behaviors are impacted by the efforts of all. So it really requires a comprehensive effort on part of the entire campus and the local community of Grand Forks to make sure that we do this. We want to make sure that all of our students know that they should test before coming back. It's not a requirement, but we're strongly encouraging it. Again, to abide by those prevention measures that I just mentioned. And it shouldn't just happen on campus. We need to make sure that those behaviors are done both at UND, but also across their activities throughout the city of Grand Forks. So with that, I'll turn it over back to you, either to the mayor or to Dr. Brenner.
Dr. Brenner, go ahead and take it away, please.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, President. Terry Brenner, Superintendent Grand Forks and Grand Forks Air Force Base School Districts. It's a privilege to be here today. And first of all, I want to start by talking about the collaborative efforts that the school district has had with the city over the last several years. And Mayor Bochinsky stepping into the chair on July 1st, that hasn't changed the culture one bit. So we're happy to be at the table with the city, with the university, with all other partners across our community as we make decisions related to COVID-19. August 31st is our new start date for K through 9, and then 10 through 12 will start on Tuesday, September 1st. And with that, I think probably everybody watching, but I'll just give a brief snapshot to put things into context. Just about a month ago, we surveyed our parents and our staff about their desire to return to the schoolhouse or if they would prefer distance learning. And at that time, our parents told us 8% of our parents, a singular digit number, 8% of our parents said they wanted to keep their students home pre-K through 8 and use a distance learning model. And at the same time, we probably had just a handful of staff, teachers and support staff who wanted to stay home due to underlying health conditions. As the COVID data changed over time, we decided to resurvey again. And those results just came in on Sunday night from our staff and Monday night from our parents. And our parents, about 19.4%, almost 1 in 5 students will be involved in a distance learning model. And the balance, the 80%, the other 80+%, will be in a face-to-face model at our campuses. So we're pleased that we were afforded the opportunity to allow parents a choice. And as a result, I think people are pretty comfortable with where we're at. Maybe comfortable is a word I'm using a little too loosely. I think there's still concern about the virus itself and how it spreads, et cetera, and what's going to happen when 7,500 students, not all 7,500, but 6,500 students will be coming back to our campuses. So with that, this past Monday, we activated our teacher key fobs. So now teachers are in the building. Principals have been in the building for several weeks now. And so while it's one thing to have a distance learning and a face-to-face educational plan in place, given all the CDC requirements, having public health weigh in with input, all true health system, et cetera, there becomes some nuanced differences when our teachers get into their classrooms. So while we did all of our measuring in terms of square footage and how many bodies could be allowed in a classroom for social and physical distancing, the reality is once teachers get in there and see, feel, and touch it, there can be a little bit of different shaping of that perspective. So we're listening to what our teachers have to say. And by the way, they're not under contract yet, but many of them are back in the classrooms and getting ready for August 31st. We're going to listen to what they have to say. And if there's some places where we have to adjust and pivot, we've said all along that this would be a fluid plan and a fluid document. And there is a likelihood that there could be some changes along the way. So given all of that, we have also allowed our athletics to start under our Smart Restart program. There are guidelines in place for our coaches, for our athletes, and some of the structures that they're putting into team concepts and how they're breaking out into cohorts, so that we don't have, for example, a volleyball team. We don't have all 20 or 25 kids mixing it up all the time. We have cohorts within those groups. So it's been a smart restart from athletics. Our athletic director, Mark Rarick, is overseeing that. And we're pleased that our coaches are masking up when when it's not possible to physically distance. But we've got 6 or 7 sports that are preparing for the fall season. And I believe we've got a competition coming up with soccer next week on Tuesday evening. So with that, it's school as almost business as usual, given the framework that we're working within. And I will just pause there in the event that there might be questions for the school district.
Thank you. I'll just close with some remarks and we'll go to comments and questions. But I mean, the risk level is different for everyone. And I think that's great that there's options for the school district. I would just continue to say we need to wear masks. I think it's a really effective way to fight the spread for asymptomatic carriers. We need to continue to be socially distant. We need to continue to disinfect, continue to wash our hands. And we need to be even more aware of this as schools are starting, because this is very important and we want to keep our schools running. So I really appreciate both your time here. John, if you want to open it up to questions now, please.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Our first question comes from Mr. Joe Bowen from the Grand Forks Herald. Go ahead, Joe.
Hey, this is a question for Terry here. I'm looking at a GFPS COVID-19 classroom and school closure matrix. And basically, it seems like there's a couple different levels where you might, temporarily close a classroom, temporarily close a school, et cetera, depending on the rate of community spread. And some of the different thresholds are 5 or fewer cases per 100,000 people, 6 to 10, and then 100 or greater. I'm sure you're familiar. Just want to make sure I'm on the same page here. Where did those thresholds come from?
Yeah, that's a document that, Joe, I would call a draft document. That's something we've been working with public health on relative to making decisions, and that's probably more from a broader community perspective. We already have our metrics in place for what we would do at the school level. For example, if we have at a elementary school, if we have a case in a classroom, that classroom will be closed down for 24 hours. If we have a second case, then it's likely going to be 72 hours and the entire school will close. But it's going to be a sliding scale metric that we're going to be using, because a small elementary school having 1 or 2 cases is going to be much different than a larger campus like Red River Central South Middle School. So we're going to make those adjustments based on student enrollment.
Thank you, Dr. Brenner. Next question from KVRR TV.
Hi, this is Austin Erickson from, I'm muted. Am I muted?
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Hi, this is Austin Erickson from KVRR TV. President Armacost and Mayor Buchenski, how concerned are you about UND students coming from hotspots like the South and New York coming back to Grand Forks? They won't just be in dorms. They will also be out in bars, restaurants, things like that.
Well, I think I'll let Dr. Armacost, they have a great plan in the dorms, and also a great plan with testing before they get there. So I'll let you take that one, President.
Right. So in general, we expect our students upon their return either to test before they come back to campus or shortly after. So we'll have ample opportunities to identify infected students as they're arriving to campus. We have a very strong encouragement for them to do this. There's not a requirement, but we'll take advantage of social media and outreach to the students before they come back to make sure they seek out testing again, either before they show up or shortly thereafter. So of course, infection is a concern, but again, I'll highlight the fact that if we take the steps to keep distant from each other, to wear face coverings, and to avoid large gatherings, those types of behaviors we know have a tremendous impact on reducing the risk to others. And so we'll continue to encourage those steps. We'll encourage testing. And then again, the quarantining of close contacts will have a tremendous impact. So in spite of the concern about infection, I think the procedures that we've put into place will mitigate that risk.
Thank you, President. Sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
Austin, that is, of course, the biggest concern is that the students are going to be going out and gathering in restaurants and bars, and that's what we have to be mindful of as a society and pay attention to that. One thing I was going to note too, and I know President Armacost, you said that the dorms, you have no co-living in the same rooms, that they've separated due to the space that you had, so everyone's in a single room. If you want to elaborate on that, I think that's an exciting piece of the puzzle too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mayor. I mentioned the physical configuration of our spaces on campus has been altered by COVID. So in the classrooms, we've reduced the density of the number of students that will be in each classroom. So this will require, of course, some blended version of teaching face-to-face, but also online together synchronously. And so in addition, the living spaces for those living on campus in the dormitories, we have had the capacity to offer single rooms. In fact, the only on-campus living for the dormitories will be single-person rooms. And so by doing that, we will keep a safe physical distance. The density within the dormitories will be less than what we see in the typical academic year. So I think this will help mitigate the risk as well.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next question from Mr. Neil Carlson with iNews. Go ahead, Neil.
Hi, for the mayor, I guess. Are you getting a clearer picture of what the COVID financial hit could be for the city down the road? I mean, is it not that bad or something you can weather and won't mean layoffs and cuts of service?
Yeah, definitely. I think when COVID first hit, we had estimates on sales tax revenue. We expected it to be 25% down. Now we're probably trending towards high single digits, or right around 10%. I believe as of May, we were actually up year over year. So that was a promising sign. But some other not so promising signs are the state funding that we get. So a lot of the state sales tax that comes from oil money out west, portions that we get from that are looking much lower. And also the Prairie Dog infrastructure funds that we were expecting to get. That isn't coming. The good news is we do have CARES funding that's working its way down to the municipalities, and looks like we're in line to get about 3.7 million, which should pretty well fill up any gap that we were going to have for 2020. 2021 is concerning, but I think we've tightened up the budget quite a bit, and we'll be ready for it. I don't predict any layoffs. We've actually been able to make a small raise for every employee, and that's great for retention and continuing employment. So it's been tough, but we've weathered it pretty well.
Thank you, Mayor. Next question comes from Mr. Ryan Cunningham with KNOX. Go ahead, Ryan. Don't quite hear you though, Ryan. Ryan, I'm going to unmute you.
Okay.
There
Are we
you go.
good now? All right.
Yes,
Thank
we
you. Earlier in the press conference, Mayor Bochensky, it was stated that it's important for the various safety issues to happen, not just on a certain campus, but also citywide. You just referenced bars and restaurants as far as places that college students tend to come together and commingle. What responsibility do you think the city has in altering its plans as a city to keep schools open?
I think that's just being more vigilant and educating. I think we're at the point now where we know we need to keep businesses open, and they've set up their engineering in their buildings. The biggest concern is a table that's sitting together. We're not ready to shut down people being able to go out and dine together. A lot of restaurants, you see people wearing masks to get in, but you still have to eat. We're not ready to give up that dining and that nightlife. There's mental health issues, and there's all kinds of other economical problems that come with that. We're going to continue to be even more vigilant and keep working on our education and our engineering of spaces so that it can be as safe as possible. We can't eliminate all risk. If the goal is to eliminate all risk, then we're really going about it the wrong way. We're going to do the best we can and find that balance economically and safety-wise.
Thank you, Mayor. Next question, Mr. Joe Bowen. Go ahead, Joe.
Hey, Terry. So I get that the school closure matrix is a draft document, but still, the thresholds that are in there, even if they're draft thresholds, where did they come from? Is that the public health department saying, hey, these are good figures for this matrix, or is that from the CDC? Where do those come from?
Yeah, I believe that document came from public.
And next question, Mr. Austin Erickson from KBRR. Go ahead, Austin.
Mayor Bochensky, you said it was important to wear a mask, social distance, things like that. If it's so important to wear a mask, why aren't you making a mask mandate?
Because I think we can still trust that our community is going to make the right decisions. We're not going to mandate a mask. This is very hard to enforce, and we're going to continue on the education side and push it very hard. I'm not willing to impose that on citizens, and it's not something that I believe is the right path. And I think we have the right population and a smart enough group of people that we can make the right decisions without needing government to tell us what we need to do.
Thank you, Mayor. Go ahead, Ryan at KNOX.
Dr. Brenner, to kind of go back to my colleague Joe Bowen's question. So if the document came from public health and those are guidelines as to what to do, and you've got your own document as to what you're going to do within the school. So you've got a document that's a draft document about community spread. You have another plan based on what happens within your buildings. How much input does public health have on whether or not schools are open?
They're actually part of our planning team, our school's Smart Restart planning team. And we'll be meeting every other week, taking a look at community data, regional data, state data. And then we just simply know what happens within our schools. We can make decisions based on an identified COVID case in our building, which would come from public health, notifying the school district or notifying the school. We would identify which classroom that was, and we can make a decision based on that. So they're at the table with us. They're part of our planning team.
Thank you, Dr. Brenner. Mr. Joe Bowen.
Maybe this is more of a question for Debbie then, but based on this document, the low or no community spread, moderate community spread, or substantial, where is the Grand Forks County right now? Like how many spreads, cases of community spread are there per 100,000 residents?
And we do have Deb Swanson on the line, so she can answer. Go ahead, Deb.
Hi, Joe. This is Debbie. I don't have that data right in front of me, but we are going to be sharing some information either today or tomorrow regarding what our positivity rates are. And we do know that the positivity rates are a factor for helping decision making. We also know case per 100,000, which is on the North Dakota Department of Health website. Information is available, as well as the types of spread that we have in our community, whether it's household contact, travel, or community spread or close contacts. We know that community spread continues to be a concern. So all of the things that have been talked about here are really important. I think the message overall that you're hearing today is that it takes a village and it takes our entire community to work together to ensure that we can have university students safely return and that we can keep our schools open and our children educated. But it is going to take the cooperation of everyone, whether it's businesses, residents, governmental entities. We'll all have to work together. As Dr. Brenner mentioned, we have been very involved in the planning for the schools, but we recognize that the situation is really fluid and things can change. And so what plans are put forward one day may need to be changed or adjusted based on what happens in real time.
Thank you, Deb. We have time for two more. We'll go first to Ryan Cunningham with KNOX.
Deb Swanson, so I'm on the website taking a look at what the numbers are right now that you just referenced. And for Grand Forks County, the rate per 100,000 is currently 1,003. We don't have, obviously, 100,000 people that live in the county, so that's a multiplier. But based on 1,003 and that draft document, where would we be with schools today?
Well, I can say with confidence that we're not at low risk. We're probably somewhere in a moderate risk. I know that the schools are looking at various ways to determine what their risk is based on some modeling. And we're also doing some modeling with an expert panel to look at what is the safest thing for schools to be using relative to their risk factors. But everything that has been put into plans is taking all of that into consideration. And it doesn't change any of our basic guidance. It may require some pivoting throughout the school year, but that comes as a result of testing and contact tracing and numbers. But I can say with confidence, we're probably not at a low risk. We were there back in June when people were doing everything we needed them to be doing to mitigate the disease. But we got a little bit relaxed, especially around the 4th of July holiday, and we opened things up and things, people have fatigue. We all have COVID fatigue. But it's going to be up to all of us, to really be vigilant in the next several months.
But I guess my question is, what does the draft document say about 1,003 per 100,000?
I'm not sure which draft document you're referencing. The school
Okay.
districts?
The one that Joe Bowen has been referencing throughout the course of the press conference.
That I can't speak to because that's the school district's plan. I don't have it right in front of me.
Okay. Well, I thought the school district said that came from the public health department, so I may have had that mistake.
The recommendations come from the public health department relative to the matrix that they've provided. We reviewed them. We didn't draft them, but we did review them. Yes.
Okay. So then based on that matrix, what would 1,003 mean as far as school today?
I don't have it in front of me, Ryan, but I'll be happy to get back to you with an answer once I have an opportunity to review it. And once we have an opportunity to do some additional modeling with that data.
And I think that number comes from the total number that have, from the start of COVID, the total number of cases. So it's a continuing, that number that you're talking about, the 1,003, is just going to be a continual growing one because it doesn't take into account any of the cases that have been resolved. I think it's finding a rolling average is what they're working towards. Finding a rolling average of where the community spread's at is where probably that final data bit will come in, but I think that hasn't quite been decided yet. Hope that gives a little bit of clarity there.
Thank you, Mayor. And we will go, our final question from Mr. Joe Bowen.
Yeah, hey there. So you guys have referenced a couple different, community data, regional data, that sort of thing. Brandon, earlier you said the number of hospitalizations. That's all stuff you're looking at when you make these policies. And also the state's Smart Restart program. One of the ways you know whether or not you're in the red zone, the green zone, whatever, is like the percentage of ICU beds that are available. But I haven't been able to find quite a lot of that. It seems like the only data that's actually readily available for members of the public is on the State Department of Health's website, and it's considerably less than what they say is the criteria for the Smart Restart program. And it seems like there's no good way to find hospitalization data. So where can the public go, just, everyday person go, to find some of the data that you guys seem to be referencing when you have these press conferences? Or when you make these decisions anyway?
Do you want me to take that question, Mayor Bochensky?
Yeah, please.
What I can tell you is that the State Health Department has an analytics team that's been working on county level data, but it's fairly complex. They are now allowing us to release some of that information, and they do plan on putting some of it on the State Health Department website. It would give a little bit more detailed information than what's currently available. And it's my understanding that the State Health Department, the State Health Officer, and the Governor are having a discussion about when that can be released on the website.
Thank you very much, Deb, and thank you to members of the media for our press conference this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Brenner. Thank you, Mr. Armacost. And as we have in the past, we will end with words from Mayor Bochensky, if you'd like.
Yeah, and I'll echo the same thing. Thank you to members of the media that are here. Deb Swanson, I know you have a very, very busy schedule, as does Dr. Brenner and President Armacost. So thank you all for being here. It's the echoing of the same message. We need to wear masks. We need to stay safe. We need to stay socially distanced when we can. We need to find a balance where we can look at this as a long-term problem, and we need to find solutions that are sustainable. And I think we're on a very good path there, and I'm very excited to see the response from the community and the response from our institutional partners. So thank you. With that, we'll close it out, John.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good afternoon.